Hi, Shashank. Thank you for doing this. So you run Practo. People have heard of Practo? Yeah? So Shashank is the guy who started it from his literally dorm room in NIT Suratkal. So you're not a doctor, but you run a healthcare company, right?
Yes, I'm an engineer. I'm a software engineer.
You finished it, or you just kind of?
I started in my third year. I don't have the degree to prove it.
You don't have?
But I got the Distinguished Alumni Award, so I think I'm a graduate.
Okay, so they haven't given you a graduation degree, but they've given you a Distinguished Alumni Award?
I have that for sure.
Okay, so we had 12th fail, now we have college dropout, I don't know. And the last valuation of Practo, guys, I don't know if you know this, but it's around $500 million. So that's 4,150 crores. If I'm not wrong, at 83. How many zeros in 4,150 crores?
I'm not counting.
See, you can't even count the zeros. And the dude's not even a doctor. No doctor has that much money. Or I don't know, maybe some plastic surgeon somewhere. Well, that is incredible. And the valuation is, I guess, an idea of the value you are adding. But for people who, I mean, everybody's heard of Practo. You can call it Uber of doctors. Not really, but kind of. You can't cancel, the doctors can't cancel. That's one thing. But what does, to explain to a layperson, what does Practo do, very briefly, and you know, how is it adding value to the healthcare?
No, first of all, thanks to ABP and thanks Chetan for having me here. Good afternoon, everyone. Everyone that I've met, you know, there's not a single person that I've met who doesn't want better healthcare, who doesn't want higher quality. So everyone wants to live longer, live healthier. They want it for themselves, they want it for their family. That's the universal need. You know, the people, I'm sure 30, 40 years back wanted to live up till 80. Now people want to live till 100. I'm sure the next generation wants to live till 125, and that's going to keep happening. So what Practo does is that in healthcare, you know, many of us here are not, I'm also not from healthcare. That's why I could solve this problem. I could relate to this problem. I found healthcare to be very complex. You know, I found healthcare to be very opaque, a black box. I don't know the treatments. All the words are so scientific and confusing. I don't know the pricing. I don't know the options I have. I don't know, you know, which is the right place to go. I have all these, hearsay, but I don't know scientifically which is the right place to do, what to do. I'm an engineer. For every decision I make, I put an Excel chart, I put down what are the options I have and decide. So we found that in India there's such good quality, but that accessibility to it was a big challenge. The matchmaking was a big challenge. If I'm a patient and I need to, let's say, get an oncologist, and more specifically, a breast cancer specialist, more specifically, someone who knows that particular type of cancer really well, there are people who do that. And the chances of survival or chances of impact can be 10x higher if you go to that right person, but we miss to do that. We go to the person we think is the best, who's probably very good, but the chances of outcome can be much different. So what Practo does is, we have now 2 lakh doctors on our platform. We try to understand their specialities, their subspecialties, their expertise, and then we help to connect that dots and make it easy for the layman, just through a mobile app, to demystify this very complex black box. Because who doesn't want their parents to live 10 years or 20 years more? Who doesn't want themselves or anybody else to live longer?
In fact, that's how it started, isn't it? Like you actually took your parents to a clinic or wherever, and you saw the doctor not being able to email and print out something. You've told me that story, but just to for the audience, how did it start? And you were still at NIT, and you're saying that they were not, the studies weren't really happening in the college, so I was bored, so I thought, let's just make a 4,000 crore company. Because, you know, what's a man to do?
Don't really worry too much about the outcome, but I love the process of doing things. I was in college. I think the college was a fantastic college. I was in NIT Suratkal. I was doing BTech, computer science, IT information there. But for whatever reason, the curriculum was not as exciting. They were not teaching the latest in technology there. Back then in 2009, internet was booming, and script-based languages were very important. But we were not being taught that. So I used to go outside the campus, get books, read up about it, and then I used to come back to Bangalore to sell my products. The way Practo started off was my father had a knee replacement surgery that was required. And I went to one of the top hospitals in Bangalore. the doctor was using an iMac back then. And when he gave me a printout. And I told him that, instead of a printout, can you give me an email, right? Email is easier, it'll get recorded forever. I don't need to worry about searching for it, etc. I don't know, take this paper. He looked at me very puzzled and he said, I would love to give you an email of your father's report, but unfortunately my software only has a print option. It doesn't have an email option. So it had only a button, and that button was limiting the doctor to serve my need. So I said, that button is honestly just one line of code. Just one line of code, right? It's not very complex. Software should have that. So I said, okay, I'll make one for you. So I just made a software and gave it to the doctor. The doctor was super happy. He paid me for it. Then hundreds and hundreds of doctors started paying me for that software.
How much were you charging?
Back then, we used to charge about, I think, 10,000 per year, in that range. So we used to sell the software, but it was online, so they had to pay us every year. So by the time I graduated, we had paying customers because of that one button.
You understood the subscription model long back before it cooled to understand. Like,
yeah, we were the first SaaS software for doctors one of the few in the world.
Yeah, SaaS, for those who don't know, like me, I've just learned, is software as a service, where you don't actually sell the whole software package, you charge them every year.
Yeah, and today we have about 20,000 doctors using it.
Oh, you still have that? That's a separate?
Still being used. Overall software for Practo, almost about 80,000 doctors use it in India, Middle East, many other countries.
Just so that they can email?
We of course added more features. We were one of the first to add the SMS feature, then we made it more complex. We added billing systems, EMR systems, and much more.
Okay. Let's talk, because you're watching healthcare very closely, one of the things we've all noticed is everything becomes more expensive over time, but healthcare has become extremely expensive, right? We like see hospital bills which are more than 5-star hotel bills. People are borrowing money, getting deep in debt. I don't know, it just seems to be a much faster rise in healthcare costs. Maybe the quality is also improved. I would give it that. We didn't have hospitals like this in India earlier. So there was no scope of charging 57 lakhs for a 1-week stay. But I have seen bills like that on social media. What's going on? And we know India's reality. People don't earn, we don't even have that many taxpayers and everything. So what can be done to provide good quality healthcare, but not astronomical costs, which are almost unaffordable for 99% of India?
So if you look at US and the worldwide, in inflation, the two things that are, the inflation is the largest year on year is education and healthcare. The cost of these two astronomically keep going up. And it's as the country gets more developed, that costs will keep going up. One of the things that I'm seeing in India is that because consumers like us, we directly go to doctors, we don't go through an insurance company, first approach a doctor or a hospital. That's because in India there's a trust gap. We are a developing economy, so most of us, when we decide about healthcare, it's most important thing that comes to mind is, who do I trust? I can't take a risk, who do I trust? Because quality in India in healthcare can vary a lot. It can be very bad to extremely good. So people are very conscious about quality, and the first thing that comes to mind is, I don't want to take a risk. It's okay if I need to pay a little bit more, but where's the best place I can go? I don't want to be in this place where there's poor quality healthcare. And because India is such a large country to regulate, the regulators can't manage the quality across the board. So they try to do it to the lowest common denominator. So people like us, we try to go to with trust in mind. And what happens is that only a few names come up in our minds. And our healthcare spends go to those few players. And those few players, because trust is such an important, it's almost like a brand, right? So you go to the branded places, and so you end up spending more. So what can actually reduce this is two things. One, if we are able to find how can large number of hospitals gain the trust of consumers, so that not a few monopoly exists, it's a larger base. That's one of the things that Practo does, is how do you enable establishments like hospitals and clinics to showcase trust, so that consumers can trust them, and not everybody has to crowd those few beds that's there everywhere. That's one. Two is, again, insurance. Can we have more gatekeepers? In most of the countries where they're able to manage costs well is where consumers go to insurance companies, and then insurance companies have the incentives to keeping the costs low. Hospitals have the incentives to inflating the costs. So I'm not saying they do, but the incentives are not aligned. So if you go through an insurance company, they're on your side. They want you to live longer because they get more premium. They want you to spend less because they make more margins. So I think the incentives with an insurance company is more aligned. And insurance penetration in India is still beginning to happen. The trust in providers is beginning to spread. So it's going to take some time. But these are the two areas, if we keep developing on, the cost can be controlled.
Okay. Is there any country's healthcare model you like and you think could be good for India? Like, is there any, just, I mean, I'm not saying we should do exactly that, but I mean, are there any countries which you feel have done a pretty decent job?
That's a tough one because, like you said,
everywhere it's messed up.
If you know, if you look at UK, and I'm just going off the developed countries, if you look at UK, there's a waiting line for doctors. You can't meet a doctor in two, three months. For surgeries, it's probably years. In US, you have a problem of costs again inflated. So to be honest, we don't appreciate what we have in India. It's quite good. It can get better, but we have something that's good. I think if insurance penetration goes up, it will get even better. We have now new digital public goods coming out like ABDM, HCX. These are similar to UPI that is there in finance. And so it can be revolutionary in India. I think the one model that I do like is Australia. I think Australia has managed to keep quality high and the costs reasonably well. Of course, a country like us can't afford those rates, but they have done a much better job than other developed countries. Their treatment outcome data has also shown that even with those costs, the quality has not suffered. So I think that's the closest that comes to my mind, but I think India has to find its own answer, to be very honest.
Can you do medicine, like consult a doctor online? Can it be done? Because for me, from childhood, without a stethoscope, like it's all about the thing, the heartbeat or whatever. But I guess that instrument is a little overrated.
Because I'm not a doctor, but I'll tell you what I do know.
You have 2 lakh doctors. So, I mean, tell me something, is it possible? What is possible? If people are, like, they want to consult a doctor, I have a cold, do I have to go to a clinic and sit with 50 other patients, get some more viruses, give them my virus? Or can I do it online? Is it even possible or not possible, or are some things possible?
I think, like you rightly called out, there are many things that are possible today. The most important thing is treatment outcome, right? Whether stethoscope is there, or there's a new device, or there is 1 doctor visit or 10 doctor visit, the most important thing is the patient getting better for the long term? And what we have seen is there are a lot of ailments for which a teleconsultation is probably better. Like you called out, instead of, for a very minor thing, going to a hospital where you're probably exposed to other patients with other challenges, probably unnecessary. And also maybe sometimes you delay the need to go and you self-medicate yourself. Again, a challenge. You pop in pills without talking to a doctor, again a challenge. So I think the telemedicine finds the right balance between self-medication and overcrowding the hospital. But there are, of course, limitations to it, right? And a good doctor will tell you what the limitations are, that what he or she cannot do, right? He or she cannot diagnose you, which requires a physical examination. And in those cases, they tell you what the preventive steps to be taken, what the immediate steps to be taken, and when the right consultation needs to happen. So I think it fits in as a hybrid in between. You might own a car, but sometimes you will take an Ola and an Uber, right? Okay. So I think it fits in as a need that's required at the right time. It won't replace anything, but it fits in as a need that's a hybrid between the two.
Okay, that's good. Is healthcare only about, if you're sick, you go to a doctor, you get fixed? Is healthcare also about preventing the problem in the first place? Because I think almost the big pharma, I mean here, abroad also, everywhere, the incentive is to keep people a little sick. I remember I give some corporate talks. I went to a pharma company's talk. It was the diabetes conference. So all the people who sell diabetes drugs were invited to Goa or something to party because they had a record sales. And they were showing graphs. And they said, how amazing is this? Diabetes is going up and up and up. And we are selling more and more and more. I mean, for them, I get it. They were very happy that they have more and more, many more crore Indians got diabetes this year. Why do so many Indians have diabetes, hypertension? It's a crazy number. It's like, if you're above the age of 40, and like at least for males, 1 in 6 chance, or 1 in something, 3 that you have diabetes, or 1 in 3 that you have diabetes, or hypertension, or both, cardiac. I mean, it's just there. Is it our food? Is it our culture? Is it our genetics? Is something missing? Or is it like we'd rather, the whole incentive is keep people sick and find the medicine for life. Not like one pill you get, okay, what's the benefit to the pharma company? Subscription model there also. For life. If you notice, all the medicines that are big now are for life. That's what they were talking in the conference also, by the way. And I was like, dude, like these guys are on a different planet, man. They want to make us all sick. They were not trying to make us all sick, but they were just happy we were sick. Right? That's just the way their business works. How do you see it?
I think it's, you know, the first question is why do India has the capital for diabetes and hypertension.
Can I just ask you to keep the mic closer?
India is the capital for diabetes and hypertension. Unfortunately, it's also been proven genetically there are reasons for it. So, you know, we don't need to blame the people who have it for the reason they have it, but there are some genetical reasons. Of course, it can be prevented. Of course, there are a lot of new technologies coming in that can help you manage it without medication. And we do many programs where we help patients without having to reduce the medication in their diabetes journey. It's called Practo Transform, and many companies now have something called Practo Remission programs or Practo Reversal program. I mean, sorry, diabetes remission programs or diabetes reversal programs. That's why I feel that insurance is a very important, you know, a part of a healthcare ecosystem. They are the right balance factor in the ecosystem. Otherwise, if you look at whatever we do, we go to a hospital, we have trust gaps between the hospital. Are they charging me for unnecessary treatments? You go to a diagnostic lab, you don't know whether the tests are required, not required. Are they charging me extra for it? You go to a pharmacy, you don't know whether they're giving you the expensive medicine or the... So there's trust gap in the ecosystem because there's no player whose incentives are aligned with the patients. You want less medication, you want less tests, you want the right level of treatment. You don't want over or under. That's why insurance plays a very important role where they balance these things out, because if they under-treat you, then they have to pay in the long term. If they over-treat you, they have to pay in the long term. So I think the business model of insurance needs to be encouraged, and in India it's growing at the fastest pace around the world. One of the fastest insurance growing markets is India today. So I think it's a matter of time when these things will start getting controlled. There are more things in prevention today than ever before. We can now predict even in cancer and in many other things way in advance. Now even stage 1, we're talking about stage 0, stage 0.5 of cancer detection that's coming up. Where once a year, if you do a scan, you are able to recognize these things and prevent a lot of these stage 1s and stage 2s from happening. So there's a lot that's going on in the preventive space, and I'm sure, you know, it'll be with all of us very soon.
Okay. Let's get away from healthcare. Let's just talk of startups. Let's talk of people trying to do startups. There've been some startups recently. We don't have to name them, which had a huge rise, if at all, in the profile, valuation, whatever. And then they've had a lot of issues. Some are really like in the news for the wrong reasons now. Let's just stop it there and not make conjectures. You as a founder and a recent founder, what do you think goes wrong when you have such a success story and then you suddenly, it's just a complete turnaround and it's negative? What are some of the things founders need to take care of? And especially if there's a young person watching this here or on TV, and if he or she wants to open a startup, what tips would you give them?
I think, I think startups are, both overhyped. At the same time, they have to face the consequence of that hype, right? I'm sure businesses have the same trajectory. There are many large industrial groups that have gone under because of that. I think it's common between everything, whether it's a startup or a large non-startup, right? I think the fundamentals of the business have to be strong. You have to add value. Valuations are temporary, right? I think profits, margins, revenue, these are what carry a company forward. So I think if that's there in a startup, nothing to worry about. I think there will be times when cost of capital will change, and so you have to adjust your cost structures accordingly. So there's nothing very specifically wrong, I would say, about some of these companies going under. It is expected. It is expected that a percentage of them will come under issues. It's the same natural law that happens to everyone. But I think what can help prevent it is, because the growth pace, the growth in a startup is much higher. When you talk growth in a company, you're usually happy with a 20-25% growth rate. In startups, you're talking about 100%, 200%, 250% year-on-year growth rate. So because of that growth, you accumulate a lot of capital, you accumulate a lot of responsibilities, and that can sometimes get your head, right? That can sometimes push you in the wrong direction. And that sudden growth has its positives and negatives. You capture a lot of market share, you capture a lot of profits, but at the same time, you also, it's not organic, right? It's in a very inorganic way. So you have to be careful to have a level-headed mind, right? To have your feet on the ground. You need to know what's real, what's not real, what's temporary, what's permanent, what's important, what is a temporary phase. And I'm sure that with more companies doing well and not doing well, the trajectories, the lessons will be learned, and founders will avoid these traps that have happened.
Although it's still a valuation, Practo has this big valuation, and I think it's fair to say that you're a wealthy man. Let's face it. How old are you?
I'm 36 now.
You're 36. And there's so many zeros that it's difficult to count sometimes. It's all valuation, and I know you're all about the work. But from being that boy in NIT Surathkal to like suddenly, coming into being seen as a startup founder and at least half unicorn and going to be unicorn, I'm sure, soon. How does the wealth and money in all this affect you versus just doing business and like making Practo do what it's supposed to do? How do you mentally balance it all?
Yeah, I think, millions and billions have zeros. So does the Indian population. If we have 1.5 billion Indians, and the number of people that we reach each year, we almost 15 crore people use Practo. They come to Practo each year. So I think that's really where the motivation lies. Now, whether that valuation is this or that, it's a consequence of that. So for us, what's kept us going for 15 years, it has been the impact that we make on people. It's the utilization of new technologies that come in. How do we interpret that, connect the dots between the technology, healthcare, consumers, and make it better for everyone? When we started, we got the SaaS model going, the software as a service. Then when the mobile came out, we got the mobile apps going. When we got, now when we have AI coming out, we are now one of the, the first few to put out solutions in AI that can help people like you and me. So that's really what's the exciting part, right? Now, whether you attribute which number to it is finally a number, right? But the impact it has on people, the impact it has on crores of people, and what it does to them is really what is, what's meaningful. And that's what keeps you going, whether some 5 people think of your number to be this or that is less important, but if the 15 crore can get to 20 crore people around the world, and if we can potentially have a bigger impact in things like you mentioned on prevention, using AI and other things, it's really meaningful. And we also help contribute to the GDP of the country, we help contribute to a healthier India. Those are the things that keep us going. Those are the things that we talk about. Valuations are honestly, to be very honest, external. They're not as much as company conversations or day-to-day conversations in the company.
Okay. Well, Shashank, you're a symbol of New India, and you are an inspiration to all of us. And thank you for all the good work, and thank you to help India get better.
Thanks, Chetan.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Ideas of India, yeah, Ideas of India. ABP Network's Ideas of India.